Bear down, Bears fans. It is game week. On Thursday, the Chicago Bears take on the Houston Texans in the first of the preseason games. A lot of excitement going on right now for the Bears. But the most exciting thing that's happened in the last couple of days is Montez Sweat was kicked out of practice because this is the second time he's made contact with Caleb Williams during his, and by the way, fantastic rushes to the point that Darnell Wright, there might be a few concerns early on about what is going on with Darnell Wright right now. If you like this type of content, guys, please make sure on the way in that you hit the like button. Helps push me up in the algorithm. Doesn't hurt at all. They only draw a small blood and urine sample from you on the YouTube app for pressing that button. Not much. Anyway, so very weird sort of occurrence. The Chicago Bears defense has owned the first two padded practices of training camp, which isn't a surprise because defenses tend to start off a little bit better than the offenses to begin with. Pro Bowl defensive end Montez Sweat has picked up right where he left off last season, giving the Bears tackles fits with his consistent, dominating pass rush. Unfortunately, such relentlessness appears to have gotten him in trouble. One ironclad rule of camp is defenders are not allowed to touch the quarterback ever. The reason is obvious. A single mishap could lead to an injury, and an injury leads to a season of Tyson Bagent or Brett Rypien. So that would explain why head coach Matt Eberflus was furious when Montez Sweat struck Caleb Williams' arm during an 11-on-11 team period. It was the second time in back-to-back days that Montez Sweat committed this act. As a result, Eberflus kicked him out of the drills, lecturing him that such recklessness could lead to an injury that sinks the team's entire season before it begins. While it's great to see Sweat doing well in every drill, he's got to learn to control himself until he gets to face actual opposing quarterbacks. But it looks like, the good part is this, it looks like Montez Sweat is already in mid-season form. So the pass rush should be very nice as we get started on this season. Now, in speaking of training camp, we're going to go over the first week of training camp very, very soon. But we've got to be very, very careful with Caleb Williams. It is my opinion anyway, and I don't have a lack of confidence in Tyson Bagent. By the way that this was framed in that Tyson Bagent, a season of Tyson, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the season of Tyson Bagent. I have a problem paying $10 million for a guy who's not playing. Nate Davis, you're on the clock, and we're going to be talking about Nate Davis in a few moments. Still, there's a long way to go. The offense has a lot to get ironed out, and we also saw something that was absolutely crazy because going into practices on Saturday, Caleb Williams was intercepted twice in back-to-back throws. Not just intercepted in back-to-back throws, but intercepted by two third-string players. In Saturday practice, Caleb had several big throws, again hooking up for a bomb with Tyler Scott. However, Caleb Williams no different than any other rookie quarterback. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. On Saturday, Williams hit a rough stretch of plays as he has had every once in a while, but he also produced two back-to-back interceptions. And he was first intercepted in 7-on-7s against reserve safety Adrian Colbert, who picked off a throw over the middle for DeAndre Swift. On the very next play, Caleb Williams went deeper down the field to Cole Kmet, and Reddy Stewart, an undrafted rookie defensive back, intercepted him. So now, ultimately, when you look at the summary of what happened in this practice, you get a real sense that Caleb Williams, he's going to be just fine. This guy looks the part. He's been fantastic so far in practices, getting himself up to speed. However, the third play, the play right after that, he threw another pass to DeAndre Carter, and Carter just dropped it. Just fucking dropped it. So it was an interesting time. It was not, by the way, it was not a problem when you looked at it overall. It was not a problem that he dropped the pass or they had the two interceptions. He's early. It's we're working out the kinks right now. this is exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for the bad plays to be gone by the time we get to week 1. And of course, this is not week 1. This is just game week. This is the first preseason game. The question still is, will Caleb Williams be playing on Thursday? Will we finally get to see Caleb Williams in a Bears jersey on the field in action? Will he be able to run a few plays before we start to bring in the second and third team? Because that's what we got to see, right? We got 90-man roster, 91-man roster, by the way, because thank you, Tory Taylor, being Australian, has allowed the Chicago Bears to add running back Demetric Felton because of a little known rule that just took effect this season. So what happens is there is an exemption that you can file for with the NFL if you have a foreign-born or foreign player. And since the Bears have Tory Taylor from Australia on their roster, that gave them an exemption, which allowed them to add another single player onto their roster for training camp. So Felton, who was a 6th-round pick in 2021 by the Cleveland Browns, has played 24 games since 2021, 209 scrimmage yards with 2 touchdowns and 28 touches. Not a lot of activity, not a lot of action. This is really, at this point, special teams player, if anything. The Bears could use this type of of player. Demetric Felton has the potential to be at that next level. His experience as a running back and skills as a pass catcher make him the kind of multi-position, all-purpose threat Chicago offense needs to add. If you watch the playoffs and you've noticed how Andrew Reid uses players like Mecole Hardman and Tyreek Hill out in patterns and out of the backfield, it would be neat if the Bears tapped into that line of thinking and usage. Now, that doesn't mean that he's even going to make the roster. This is just an opportunity to add a little bit of depth to what I think is going to be a dramatic shift. And I think that dramatic shift that you're going to see is obviously DeAndre Swift is your starter. Khalil Herbert has done a pretty good job so far of showing his ability. Roschon Johnson, because he's the bruiser, if you will, hasn't had a chance to get in pads and start bruising people. So you really haven't seen him so far. You've just seen Khalil Herbert and DeAndre Swift kind of show out. Problem is, you're going to have to sign Khalil Herbert to a longer-term contract. He's in his 4th year. You got a 5th-year option, which will require you, if you don't sign him to a bigger contract, to you're going to either let him go or you're going to have to pay him big money. And they're not going to pay him big money on a 5th year. So there's really no circumstance in which I can see Khalil Herbert continuing on this roster. However, for this season, he's looking the part right now, and he's looking very good. So again, once we see what Roschon Johnson looks like in pads, getting the ball, then maybe that changes a little bit. And maybe Demetric Felton becomes that backup guy because Travis Homer is still on the roster. So if you were going to go, and you're the Chicago Bears, and you're going to go with 4 running backs on the roster instead of 3, then your 3 are obviously going to be, at this point, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. But you can't do that at all times. What you need at that point is you're going to have somebody on special teams. I don't know that any of them fit the bill for special teams. So you bring that 4th guy in. That 4th guy right now, Travis Homer. However, Travis Homer might be on his way out. That's why we're bringing in Demetric Felton, perhaps. And we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe the guy doesn't make it past a week. But the Bears want to take another look at another running back to get an idea. And, we'll see. Would I rather have Homer over Herbert? No, I would not. But it's not about what I would like to have. It's about what financially I could have. If I get rid of Travis Homer, then I'm losing a special teams player, and somebody's going to have to pick that up. And I don't really know how that lines up right now on special teams. I assume that Roschon Johnson would become that guy, or maybe Khalil Herbert would become that guy. But the question, of course, is still, you have an able-bodied Travis Homer who can do that, and you have trade value with Khalil Herbert. You're paying Khalil Herbert $1 million. You have no cap hit, so you can trade $1 million for $1 million. His cap hit, by the way, I think is like $50,000. Like it's an insane low number. So you can move on from Khalil Herbert not because you don't like him, but because he just doesn't fit because it's his fourth year and you got to get rid of him or you got to sign him. So, or let him go at the end of the year with no compensation. This way, you can get yourself $1 million player for the offensive line, for the defensive line. You might be able to make some kind of trade to give Khalil Herbert a chance to go out there and shine in the AFC, not the NFC, Ryan Poles, if you ever listen. So that we don't have to see him. But, you could see some kind of move like that, and it would be one of the moves that you need to have at this point. Grab yourself a little bit of value for Khalil Herbert while there's still some value for the Chicago Bears. So that would be my idea. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I do know one thing that might be happening. Nate Davis is still a problem, guys. Look, you've seen a lot of practice right now where Coleman Shelton, Ryan Bates, everybody's working for that center position to try to solidify. You've even seen Doug Kramer getting a few snaps at the center position, which is a great sign. It means that there is a healthy competition there. However, one of those guys could be a guard going into this season. Patience is a limited resource in all lines of work, but especially in the NFL. Teams don't wait for you. If you're wasting their time and resources, they will dump you for somebody who can actually help them. The Chicago Bears signed Nate Davis last year in hopes he could shore up the offensive line. What followed was him missing most of training camp and then several games last season due to various health and off-the-field issues. Things haven't gotten better so far. Davis missed both OTAs and mini camps with another health problem. Then, after one padded practice on Friday, he left the second one on Saturday with another undisclosed strain. Head coach Matt Eberflus spoke to the media about it after practice, and he said Davis was day-to-day, indicating the injury should be minor. However, with Davis, you never know. Either way, Eberflus didn't seem overly pleased about this ongoing issue. It sounds like he and the organization are reaching a breaking point. This is a statement from Matt Eberflus. Availability is everything, right? You have to be able to practice, and you've got to be capable of going hard and being better during training camp. That's all part of preparing for the first part of the season, to callous yourself. That's the individual responsibility to the football team. And when you're not out here, guess what? That doesn't happen. So it looks like the Bears could be reaching the end of Nate Davis' experiment here. Ryan Poles has already shown he's more than willing to move on from mistakes. Trading Chase Claypool less than a season after acquiring him should tell you that. Cutting Davis would only net the Bears $600,000 in cap space, but that would not be the point. It would free up a roster spot for somebody else who can actually help the team rather than constantly wasting their resources on the training room table. Undoubtedly, the team is likely questioning his mental and physical toughness behind closed doors, and at this point, fans certainly are. They've grown tired of him already. Nate Davis wasn't even that good when he did play last year. He struggled with inconsistency. If that is who he is, then what's the point of continuing this farce any longer? Thanks to the trades for Ryan Bates, the Bears have an experienced right guard on the roster. It might not be the perfect solution, but at least Bates is acting like he cares at this point. Eberflus sent Davis a direct message. Either he heeds it and works hard to stay on the field, or he's going to find himself unemployed. So we are looking at probably the end of Nate Davis. And look, there's nothing about Nate Davis that tells me or should tell you or give us any reason to think that anything is going to change for the positive. Nate Davis is Nate Davis. He is most likely going to ouch. But here's the issue. The issue is he does show up. And despite this article saying that he doesn't play very well and he was ineffective, he was not. He was probably, and I'm going to say probably, and I'm going to have to go back and start watching a bunch of tape from last season on the offensive line to be sure about this. But look, a lot of this for the entire offensive line came down to Justin Fields and his inability to release the ball and to get on to the next play. He held the ball too long. He didn't give the blocking a chance to be successful because he was still back there holding the ball. And look, here's what I'm going to say about this. I'm not saying that we're not making a tremendous second-year leap for a lot of players. Tyreek Stevenson having a big, tremendous second-year leap. Darnell Wright, a tremendous second-year leap. Roschon Johnson maybe having a tremendous second-year leap. But Tyler Scott has been looking like a star in practice right now. How is Tyler Scott looking like an absolute stud for Caleb Williams, and Justin Fields couldn't even bother to get him the ball? Is he that much better in his second year? And I don't think the answer to that is yes. I think that Justin Fields did him no service and no favors by not being very good at his job. I mean, and again, I'm still a fan of Justin Fields, and I want nothing but success for Justin Fields. But the average time for him to make a throw is 3.43 seconds. That's insanity. The second person was 3.17. It was taking over a quarter second longer to make plays than the worst quarterback in the NFL in that regard. And by the way, the number, if you're looking for Patrick Mahomes, 2.43. He was getting rid of the ball very, very quickly. So there's a big difference here. Very, very big difference overall in what you're seeing in product. And Tyler Scott, the beneficiary of it. So it stands to reason that the offensive line is the same way. The same way. They are prohibited by the abilities or lack of ability of their quarterback to make quick throws and quick decisions. And if that is the case, then, maybe part of this is just Justin Fields, but you got to do your job, right? So we'll see what happens with Nate Davis over the next couple of days, but it's not looking great right now. Now, there is an article up here I want to talk to you about, and this is an open thread and a question of the day. And the question was, who is the worst coach in the Chicago Bears history? And I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea. I don't know who you would rate. I have no idea. I don't have an opinion about this, about who was the worst quarterback for the Chicago Bears in all of history. I have no idea who that would be. So I guess I'm just not going to make any comments on it. However, the question of the day, who is the worst coach in Chicago Bears history? The nice thing about this question is that you can eliminate the first 45 years of the franchise because George Halas was the guy. You can eliminate another 20 years of Lovie Smith and Mike Ditka because, that you can take that kind of out of the mix there. But then you have contenders. Dave Wannstedt, Jack Pardee, Neil Armstrong, Dick Joran, Jim Dooley, John Fox. John Fox, unbelievable, 14 and 34. John Fox, 14 and 34. Mark Trestman, 13 and 19. The worst winning percentage is Abe Gibron from 1972 to 1974. He had just 11 wins, had the worst record overall. So you have two finalists, really, in Mark Trestman and Abe Gibron. And look, there was a lot that we thought of Mark Trestman, and he could have been the most underachieving coach in the history. Like, he never put anything together that made us feel confident in his ability. He came in, he replaced Lovie Smith. The team immediately got worse. The idea behind replacing a coach is that your team should get better, right? In his first year, he went 8-8, and he appeared set to create a team led by a strong passing attack. But Trestman's second season, despite not completely embarrassing it with a 5-11 record, was a complete humiliation of a season. The Bears were fighting in the locker room. The defense quit during the season, and they became the first team since the 1990s to give up back-to-back 50-point games. Now, just consider that sort of lunacy. Back-to-back 50-point games for a team and a city that prides itself on defense. They were in complete disarray, and after the season, the Bears were forced to make a change at coach. 2 years, and you have to get rid of your professional level NFL coach because you see the product on the field, and you can't help but think, what the fuck? Most Bears fans would probably go with Mark Trestman or Abe Gibron. at this point. So I don't know who you think it is. I'll certainly be curious. Leave a comment down below. Let me know who you think is the worst quarterback in Chicago Bears history. I don't want to tell you who I think is the guy, but I'm sure you guys will probably be able to figure it out over time. You know. Anyway, so let's talk stock down. There are a lot of football players right now that are fighting for a job, and they are Chicago Bears. And we don't know who will make this roster, but let's talk about a few of these players, because the number one place where the Bears are going to need to figure some stuff out. First of all, the offensive line. Darnell Wright was a top 10 pick, so I would like to see him have a really good time. And it might be that we need to see the pads on for a couple days before we really start to see it. But how is Montez Sweat just having such an easy time with Darnell Wright? Again, we could be looking at this from a jaded perspective because we didn't have pads, but Darnell Wright, I don't know. It's good to have Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis present, but Davis is currently day-to-day with a strain again. Braxton Jones is dealing with an injury, and Larry Borum hasn't been playing that well so far. The Bears still haven't decided on the starting center, so there's a lot of pressure right now on this offensive line. Now, I do think that this offensive line will be fine. I think that the offensive line that we take to the field at this point, Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Ryan Bates, Nate Davis, and then Darnell Wright. However, there is a real possibility that Coleman Shelton takes over that center position and Ryan Bates takes over that right guard position. We never see Nate Davis again. That still could be out there. And Larry Borum becomes trade bait. He's the only person. We're paying a couple $1 million to Larry Borum, I think $3 million. And it is very possible that we could make that we could make some room with that. But right now, the offensive line not really showing up. Let's see how it goes over the course of the next couple of days. This is a cause for concern. Want to see how they perform. Hopefully, they'll get at least just a one series or something in this first game. Probably not, but we'll see. Then Roschon Johnson, and of course, I told you guys before, Roschon Johnson really hasn't had an opportunity yet because really haven't had too many padded workouts. Friday and Saturday were the first two. So you never know. Crimson asked a good question. Who in their right mind would trade anything for Larry Borum? You know what? In fact, he doesn't rate out as poorly as what we saw on the field when you look at his performance grade for last season. So there is an NFL team or two out there. So there's possibility here that he's, we're not giving him his due, and he might have some value on a trade market. I don't see it. I'm a Bears fan. So Charles Presley says that Darnell Wright came in camp out of shape. Seen it in an interview. And guys, you got to consider just for a second here, how the fuck do you come in out of shape in OTAs, in mini camp, in anything? How do you come out of shape when it was only 3 months? How much did you eat? Like, do you live inside San Fratello's? Like, what the absolute fuck? How do you eat so much that you're just completely out of shape? Like, I mean, get your shit together, Darnell Wright. And you know what? In fact, by the time season gets here, maybe he's in good shape. Maybe we're looking really good. You don't know. We won't know. Also, another one that we're going to need to see a little bit more on, Zack Pickens. Zack Pickens, he was picked in the 3rd round last year, but he had 9 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and a half a sack. This training camp, he's frequently been on the sidelines because Gervon Dexter has looked phenomenal so far. Montez Sweat's been looking good. DeMarcus Walker's been looking good. And so has Andrew Billings. These guys have turned into a unit so far. And the preferred swap so far have been Keith Randolph has seen a little bit of the field and looked serviceable. Let's not say that he's looked great, but he's looked serviceable so far. Jacob Martin has shown out. Austin Booker has had a good training camp. We've seen a lot around the edges, and we've seen reasons to move Montez Sweat and DeMarcus Walker to the inside. So Zack Pickens has been kind of the odd man out. So we'll see how we'll see how he deals with this over the next little while. Now, that being said, let's talk about The Bears training camp. These are the takeaways, and this is from Alyssa Barbieri from Bears Wire. The defense is far ahead of the offense. Through the first 7 practices, the defense has been dominant. The offense it has been okay at best. It's not exactly a surprise considering the offense is still being learned under Shade Waldron, but there have been some real highlights from Caleb Williams. This is also a defense that had a potential to be a top 5 unit in the league, so it's understandable that this would happen. While the offense has had its moments, the defense has been mostly on the winning end. The defensive line has especially made a statement in padded sessions, overwhelming the offensive line and bringing consistent pressure on Caleb Williams. The defensive backs even ramped up the takeaways during the Saturday workout, picking off back-to-back throws. The offense is going to need to clean up some of the operational stuff. For the first 5 practices of the training camp, the offense had clean operation, which was a vast improvement. They committed no more than 1 pre-snap penalty in a single workout, but things changed once the pads went on, which is a more true evaluation of where the offense is. The offense saw a flurry of pre-snap penalties in the 2 padded practice. On Friday, they had 5 false starts. On Saturday, 7 pre-snap penalties. 5 false starts and 2 delay of games. Eberflus pointed on Friday's issue stemming from the offense using different cadences that resulted in some timing issues. However, Saturday's issues were due to what the defense was doing. Eberflus said this: the offense obviously had its struggles today, but I said to them, all 3 phases have to play well for us to be a good football team. It's got to be all 3 phases, and we're just not there yet. I expect us to learn and grow from this. However, it cannot be faulted on Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has been far from perfect through his first 7 practices, but from the media in attendance, it's clear that the Bears have a star on their hand. One of the aspects of his game that stood out is his pocket presence. There have been times where the offensive line has been overpowered by the defense, and Williams has evaded pressure and escaped the pocket to make some very impressive throws. While it's just practices, some of the plays he's made have been relayed by the media and have provided a glimpse of just how special he could be. Williams is also stepping into his own as a leader, which includes stepping in to break up a scuffle between DeMarcus Walker and Gerald Everett. That jump from OTAs to right now, there's been a huge step forward, said Ryan Bates. Being vocal, doing a great job with his cadence, getting everybody on the same page, the play calls, because it's a lot different than what he's been doing in college, and he's embracing it wholeheartedly, and he's been kicking ass. The offensive line has not, however, stepped up so far, according to her. Stop me if you've heard this before, but the Bears' offensive line is a concern. In the first 2 padded practices, the defense was dominant, while the rookie quarterback has still managed to make some good plays despite the pressure. It's not an exact recipe for success heading into the regular season. For what it's worth, Braxton Jones has been ramping up, battling an injury in the offseason. Pass protection will be key. Ryan Bates, Coleman Shelton still battling for the center position. Eberflus said last week that they would take the center competition well into training camp before deciding. But there's also another determining factor: the health of Nate Davis, who was sidelined Saturday with a strain. What else did we have here? Most of the guys not there. Braxton Jones unable to do his thing. Nate Davis unable to fully do his thing. That's got to make you concerned. And not only that, but Tyler Scott is the one that's stepping up. And you know what you got with DJ Moore. You know what you got with Keenan Allen. You know what you got with Rome Odunze, or we think we know what we've got with Rome Odunze. We see the product on the field, but the product that we didn't see was Tyler Scott. And now that we're seeing it, there are some real, dude. If you don't put stuff like that, people don't look at the video. So if you don't like the thumbnail, don't look at the thumbnail anymore. But Tyler Scott says, the game just feels so much slower for me now. I can look up, I can see what's going on, see what's in front of me. I can anticipate. That's been the biggest thing. And he has been on fire so far. Also, Gervon Dexter has been entirely disruptive so far. Dexter has been a menace at the interior pass rushing position, bringing consistent pressure all practice long. He spent the offseason focusing on his conditioning, and it's certainly paying off. He's a very good player, said Coleman Shelton. He's long, he plays hard, he plays through the whistle. He's the type of guy who never lets up. You've got to finish your block every time you go against him. The punter returner job is still up for grabs with Roma Dunze, DeAndre Carter, Dante Pettis, Velus Jones Jr., Greg Stroman, Tyreek Stevenson, and even potentially DJ Moore in the mix right now. Richard Hightower said, I don't know who the guy is going to be yet. You've got to be fearless and you've got to have confidence. Those things you've got to have before you ever step on the field. And then when we get to the field, the number one thing is ball security. We need somebody that is going to take care of the football and give us the best field position. Well, it's not Velus Jones then. So it would look like to me that there might be a few little problems. By the way, make sure you hit the like button. And this is going to be the end. This is going to wrap it up for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. We've got 4 days left before the Bears take the field for their first preseason game. We're going to get a look at some of these players. We're going to get an idea of what these guys look like. We've got some more practice in the meantime. So if anything pops up, I will keep you informed. Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember to bear down and fuck Green Bay. And I mean that. Fuck Green Bay. And also, fuck the Jets while Aaron Rodgers is there. Am I right, though? Ugh.